In another desperate move in his ongoing civil case with Virginia Giuffre, Prince Andrew's lawyers have demanded that she turn over her mental health records. They've also asked to interview her therapist in order to probe her on the question of false memories. Virginia Giuffre is suing Andrew over allegations that he sexually assaulted her in 2001. Virginia Roberts, as she was known then, was only 17 and in the hands of convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein and sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. Andrew denies all charges. Now, Andrew's lawyers, in a summary of his defence, have made this suggestion. Andrew contends that Giuffre may suffer from false memories, as evidenced by the fact that her claims regarding her time with Epstein and the circumstances under which Andrew allegedly assaulted her have repeatedly changed over the years. This defence has been attempted before. In Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, she also employed an expert witness to argue for the theory of false memories. That did not end well. She was convicted on 5 out of 6 charges and faces up to 65 years in prison. Giuffre's lawyer, David Boys, was quick to clap back at Andrew's tactics. People may misremember a lot of things, but they don't misremember sexual abuse by a Prince of England. In addition, Prince Andrew needs to say that all the other people who saw them together also have false memories. And how does a false memory create a photograph? Giuffre's lawyer there referring to this notorious picture of Andrew with Virginia Giuffre allegedly in 2001. And lawyer Brad Edwards, who represents many of Epstein's victims, said this about Andrew's strategy. It's so tone deaf that it basically amounts to litigation suicide. Taking another play out of the Epstein-Maxwell book and attacking Virginia is probably the only thing he can do to look worse. I'd say his defense can't get worse, but last time I thought that he went on TV and gave what amounted to the most embarrassingly stupid interview of all time. They weren't alone in finding Andrew's plan revolting. Barrister and academic Dr. Charlotte Proudman told The Times, "It's the ultimate in victim blaming. A lot of victims of abuse understandably reach out for therapeutic support. Andrew's lawyers are trying to discredit her. They are trying to find something she might have said to the psychologist that potentially undermines the claim she has made or to show potential inconsistencies. I think it's one of the lowest forms of tactics that can be used." We also have a quote from Professor Claire McGlynn, who said defense lawyers used to always put forward evidence of sexual history, and some of that has been closed off legally. Now it has moved from sluts to nuts. Instead of framing women as sluts, they try to claim they are nuts. Ash, this is, as all of those sort of statements suggest, incredibly low, isn't it?
I also don't think, if we are to compare what Virginia Giuffre is saying, what Prince Andrew has gone on Newsnight to say, that she's the one telling an outlandish story. She's somebody who was trafficked by Epstein. She was somebody who ended up settling with Epstein to protect him from criminal or civil actions because he had sexually exploited her. And Prince Andrew is the one saying, I'm physically incapable of sweating. I couldn't have possibly sexually abused this girl because I was at Pizza Express at the time for a birthday party that nobody can seemingly remember me having attended. So if you want to talk about outlandish stories, which might be a figment of the teller's imagination, Virginia Giuffre isn't the person I would pin for that. Now, just to talk about the issue of false memories very briefly, this is also a misuse of something that courts and psychologists had to become aware of, because false or implanted memories haven't really tended to be just somebody is mistakenly operating on the belief that they were abused and no such thing happened. It tends to be something that happens either with an awful lot of coaching. So somebody is told again and again by somebody else, you were abused, probably when they were a child, or being told that they were abused when they were a child. Or there are a few cases, I think in the 80s and 90s, where the issue of repressed memories of abuse became something of a fad in the psychology world. And you had a pretty famous book about repressed memories where a psychologist claimed to have worked with a woman who uncovered these repressed memories of her parents initiating her into a kind of satanic sex cult. And then ultimately, when you looked back over these claims, it was a very troubling relationship between the psychologist and the patient. Story emerged over time and it kept on developing because it was being reinforced through the therapeutic relationship. So yes, false memories can exist. Yes, implanted memories can exist, but not so often when you've got somebody saying that the abuse that happened to them, happened to them when they were a minor, but they weren't in early childhood at that stage where you can't really remember things. You can remember snatches of feelings and, bits of events, and there's, a kind of lot of fuzzy material to work with. Or it happens over an awful lot of time of, the story being worked through between, somebody in a vulnerable position and somebody who's more in a position of power, whether that's somebody doing outright coaching, like a parent, for instance, or a psychologist, somebody who you're very vulnerable with in the therapeutic relationship. So this is a complete misuse of this real thing that can happen, and it looks incredibly cynical to me.